Hey guys, another One Take Review, and today I want to talk about the new Avril Lavigne album, Love Sucks, with an X, because, God forbid that you don't know that she's, with the times, and definitely with the kids. It's just so rebellious. But with the spelling that really irks me aside, this is, kind of a odd album for me, I guess. I mean, Avril Lavigne's I guess a guilty pleasure. Her first couple albums they're all right. They're fun. They're enjoyable. She's kind of like the textbook definition of a guilty pleasure. Just not terrible music that you can kind of vibe with, that you don't want other people to know you can kind of vibe with, and I'm fine with her first couple albums. They didn't do anything wrong to me. They're decent actually for what they were, innocent early 2000s pop punk and pop rock. But at the same time, 2007 saw the release of The Best Damn Thing. Oh, I should specify her first two albums were Let Go and Under My Skin. But 2007's The Best Damn Thing kind of saw a major drop in quality, which is slowly built up to 2019's Head Above Water, which was kind of a very misguided attempt at doing something kind of serious, I guess. I was kind of distracted by how god awful it was and how poorly written it was and how poorly performed it was. It was just a horrible, horrible album. And I mean, not for nothing, but she's been releasing some terrible music for quite some time now. So I wasn't sure if I was gonna like Love Sucks or not, and I mean it was meant to be a relative return to form of those early days, so I gave it a shot. With it kind of being an attempt to revive her early 2000s sound, Love Sucks has a lot of sort of a almost nostalgia bait in a way, I guess you could say, but at the same time, none of it really works. It's just all sort of falling flat outside of a couple of songs here or there, but even then, those are fairly few and far between. And instead of catchy hooks or just like pleasant instrumentals, Love Sucks kind of feels like if the modern day Avril Lavigne made an album that was parodying the early days of Avril Lavigne. And I mean, if there were any evidence that that whole entire Avril Lavigne was replaced by a clone because she died after her first album or second album or whatever, how it goes, if there's ever proof of that, it's this album because it genuinely sounds like a parody of that earlier stuff, and it's just not good. It's not bad, but it's not good, and it doesn't really recapture what she was going for and what she did capture in those early days when she was still a teenage superstar kind of figure. I mean, if anything, Love Sucks kind of feels immature for an artist that's now in their late 30s. I think she is 37. I could be wrong about that, but and I'm not saying that every musician needs to grow into the pinnacle of intelligence in their music or anything like that. Random example, but the Ramones. The Ramones never grew into the pinnacle of intelligence or anything like that. They were still singing about teenage lobotomies by the time that they retired, but at the same time, they kind of were like very consistent musicians that at least slightly grew as artists over time, whereas this almost feels like a devolution, sort of. It really feels like a misguided attempt to both bring something very personal and something very early 2000s pop punk to the table, and I mean those things generally don't go together super well. And there's a couple of like attempts to be emotionally charged here, like Dare to Love Me, but they're overshadowed by other songs that are just much more not serious, just kind of like, I don't want to say goofing off because I guess they are kind of meant to be serious, but they just don't come across as that way. And it's songs like Love It When You Hate Me that are about as clever as you think, and I'm pretty sure that they think it's a lot more clever, Avril and the people that worked on this album. And for every admittedly misguided attempt to grow as a musician on this album, there's another song like the song "Fu" where it's just kind of serves no purpose, and it just feels like exactly how you think a 37-year-old doing an impersonation of like a 17-year-old would sound. It's disappointing to say the least. I think it would also be fair to say that Love Sucks feels kind of overproduced, a little too sleek for its own good, but I think it's just kind of trying to capitalize on that semi-revival of pop punk that's been happening lately. And I mean, features from Machine Gun Kelly and Blink 182's Mark Hoppus, or yeah, Hoppus, kind of drive that home a little bit. I mean, the Machine Gun Kelly sounds awful as ever, so it's about what you should expect. That's on a song called Boys Lie. And then Mark Hoppus, I mean, he delivers some vocals as well as drumming, of course, and his drumming is fantastic as ever, but he just sounds like he doesn't really want to be there, which, I mean, he hasn't sounded like he's wanted to be on any of Blink 182's more recent projects, so again, it kind of is to be expected at this point, I suppose. But yeah, it kind of feels like an attempt to cash in on a genre of revival while also growing as a musician. And again, like I said before, about completely different about like personal stories and goofy pop punk. Those two things don't go together. You can't make something very serious and then also make it into something that is exclusively being made for you to make money off of something that is growing in popularity again. And I mean, I get it. This was kind of supposed to be her comeback album, so I understand why it would be like going back to her roots. But at the same time, when your roots were stuff like, Skater Boy and stuff like that, I feel like there's a point where you don't need to go back to your roots. With that being said, as critical as I've been about this album, it's not bad. I mean, the instrumentals are fine, like I said, kind of overproduced, but they're performed well enough. The lyrics are pretty bad at times and can kind of be cringeworthy, and sometimes they think they're a bit more clever or a little more feisty than they actually are, but they're not bad. I mean, they're bad, but they're not horrible, I guess I should say. They don't absolutely ruin the album. Those, like, kind of chants and the, na-na-nas and whatnot, they aren't as horrible as they should be either. Really, there's nothing outright terrible about this album. There are even a couple songs here like "Bite Me" that they're fun. I mean, they're not great, but they're fun. They're enjoyable for what they are. Do they feel like very light? Yeah, they do. I mean, you'll probably not remember them after they end, but they're fairly catchy and whatnot, and they do their job. And if you go into this album expecting a matured, grown Avril Lavigne kind of revisiting earlier sounds, don't. You shouldn't be doing that because you're going to be disappointed. But if you just go into this album thinking, hey, what if 37-year-old Avril Lavigne just basically re-recorded what 17-year-old Avril Lavigne sounded like, you'll be fine. You'll probably like this overall. So overall, Love Sucks. Not good per se, but I will admit even through the immense number of problems this album faces, I had a good time listening to it. I can't deny that fact. I had a fun time, and I mean it doesn't really represent what Avril Lavigne probably should be representing as her career up to this point right now. I mean, like I said, she's just so far into her career that you'd think she would have grown past the stage and also not want to revisit this stage, but at the same time, it's just a basic, fun pop punk kind of record, and I mean, what more do you want from an Avril Lavigne album? Honestly, like I said, you can't go into this expecting the pinnacle of intelligence. If she had done some really amazing, thought-provoking work on stuff like Head Above Water, I'd say, yeah, sure, expect that, but she didn't. She never did, and she never will, probably at least. And yeah, with that being said, enjoyable album. Not great, but enjoyable. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. It's decent. I would maybe recommend it if you liked Avril Lavigne's early work, or you like that, like I said, that semi revival of pop punk going on right now with Machine Gun Kelly and the likes, which uh, to each his own. um, I'd recommend it. If not, then probably steer clear of this one. But I had a fun time listening to it. So yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. And with that being said, that is the end of this review, and I'll see you guys in the next one.